Welcome back, everyone, to Focus Forward. So far today, we've heard about COP26 and what it could or should mean for Glasgow businesses. Now we're going to turn a little bit more specifically towards business leadership and how we use business leadership to achieve the city's ambitions. To open our panels today, I'm delighted to welcome first Seb Burnside, who is the Chief Economist at the Royal Bank of Scotland. Seb provides insight to help the bank understand how they should change to meet the demands of an evolving economy and customer base. And Seb's portfolio covers a wide range of topics affecting personal and corporate customers, from demographic change and student debt, financial and monetary policy. Before joining our Royal Bank of Scotland, he worked for Ofcom, the telecoms regulator. So good morning, Seb. Can I hand it over to you, please?
Good morning. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much for that introduction and for the opportunity to speak to you all amongst such a great array of guests and speakers as well. So, for the discussion on business leadership, I thought it would be helpful to set out briefly my own journey on to understanding the significance of climate change for businesses, and help to tease out from that, I think, hopefully some lessons which are relevant for every business when they're going about thinking about this exceptionally fascinating, but also sometimes daunting and complicated area. So, for me, the turning point really started back in the pre-COVID era of 2018. And thinking back now, I could have, I guess, chosen to be inspired by the phenomenal leadership coming from youth activists like Greta Thunberg, or one of the many fabulously evocative and powerful literary texts on nature and the environment. But no, I am an economist, and instead it was two very esoteric events which suddenly made the penny drop for me. One was Philip Hammond's spring statement of 2018, one of the least consequential fiscal events in recent years, and emerging smoke signals from the Bank of England that they were getting interested in running a climate-themed stress test on the banks. So what was it about these two niche interests which suddenly made the penny drop for me? Well, the really interesting thing about stress tests is that they're basically just big forecasting exercises where you put yourself in normally the uncomfortable shoes of something having gone fairly spectacularly wrong with normally the economy. And so applying that to climate was a really interesting exercise to start to explore, because it made us initiate the thinking around, so what would the diverse range of impacts be on our customers and ultimately on our business if we were to go down different scenarios on climate change in the near and the very far future. And that led to a couple of early conclusions, which have served us well in the intervening time. Of course, as with most things climate, it starts with temperature. And we quite quickly understood that whilst there's quite a wide range of potential temperature outcomes from our success or otherwise of limiting climate change, it was true to say that Scotland in particular, and the UK to a slightly lesser extent, is in a sort of fortunate geographic position in that we're likely to import most of the direct physical effects of climate change, And that whilst we absolutely will see and suffer from particularly sea level rises over the period of time that take, and on changes in rainfall, almost certainly more intense rainfall and flooding as a result of that, but also highly likely increased periods of drought. Those effects would be, compared to other nations, somewhat more mild. Instead, the really big effects for our customers are likely to come from the incredibly wide array of steps that we take as an economy and a society to reorganize ourselves to avoid the worst effects of climate change. And that was where a throwaway line in the spring statement that year caught my eye, nonchalantly announcing that by 2021, no new build houses in the UK should have gas boilers in them. And that connected a proposal which has subsequently been revised somewhat, but it connected the top level systemic long-term climate scenario analysis that involves changes to our environment over many decades, right into direct policy implications affecting businesses up and down the land over the course of coming months, on a much more immediate basis. And in this case, attempting to scale heat pump installations by a factor of 100 within a matter of a few years. So that really was the point at which I started to fully appreciate that when you went through every sector and every different type of business that we support, there is its own, in some cases, multiple manifestations of those immediate changes to reflect that greater systemic picture. And it's also a feature, I think, of that applies when any customer or any business is mapping out their own stakeholders, because climate change and our joint efforts to limit its effect is of interest to every stakeholder that you would normally associate as having an interest in your business, in your decision making. From the regulators that increasingly have it as part of their statutory duties, through to the financial world of pension funds and investors who are close to being mandated to understand the sensitivity of their investments to temperature alignment. Insurers who are of course, have been for a while, but are increasingly getting much more attuned to climate-related risks. Banks like ourselves who are trying to understand our financed emissions and the risks and opportunities we have to help customers transition, right the way through to the phenomenal power of engagement with our staff and colleagues around climate and associated issues. And finally, most importantly, the customer base, for different sectors and different segments, have very diverse positions on this, but some are capable of phenomenally rapid shift in preferences once this issue becomes relevant to them and their purchasing decisions. So I think that the one takeaway I'd like you to leave with from this exposition is really that whenever you're looking at a decision that has a climate-related impact, that you should really try to discipline yourselves and map out how that decision relates to the interests of all those stakeholders. Because in doing so, you'll stand yourself in best chance of capturing the multiplicative effects of making climate part of your normal decision making, and help you make the best choices for your business and its future. Thank you.
Thanks, Seb. I certainly hadn't expected Philip Hammond to crop up in the conversations today, so thank you for adding a little bit of the unexpected there. Thank you very much indeed for that takeaway. I'm going to now bring in our panelists. Seb will join the panel, but I'm going to bring in our panelists. First of all, to introduce Carol Henry, who has been People Director of the Arnold Clark Group for 8 years. She leads all of the departments that create the Arnold Clark employee experience, and together those departments support over 11 employees across the UK. And this includes over 200 Arnold Clark branches, 2 head office locations, and 3 GTG training facilities. So a big task. Carol sets the tone for the group's diversity, inclusion, and well-being strategies, spearheading the way for particularly for youth and female recruitment in the automotive industry. Next up is Andrew Dobie, founder and chief executive of the creative agency Made Brave, a graphic designer and photographer by trade. Andrew spent 8 years as a creative director before starting Made Brave with just £1,000 in the bank and a 2-week-old baby. Made Brave now represents many high-profile brands. Delighted also to welcome Kirsty MacArthur, director and co-owner of carbon negative environmental consultancy MacArthur Green. MacArthur Green is a Glasgow-based company and has been running for over 11 years now, focused on renewables and providing ecology, ornithology and hydrology advice. And finally, a welcome to Hazel Gulliver, Director of Engagement with Scottish Power, which of course is part of the Iberdrola Group, working in the Scottish Power Corporate Affairs team. Her role sees her liaising with a variety of stakeholders on all issues of interest to Scottish Power, with a particular focus at the moment on how we can achieve a green recovery from the COVID crisis, as well as on Scottish Power's role as a principal partner for COP26. That means we have 2 principal partners involved in the sessions today. So, good morning, everyone. Can I maybe start with, I'll maybe start with Hazel, actually, because climate change really does sit rather well for Scottish Power. It's the kind of thing that just goes well with the business model. So how has Scottish Power been tackling the importance of climate change with the leadership? What has been the leadership role in addressing that issue?
Thanks, Stuart, and hi everyone. Thank you very much for having me here today, and thanks for the question. Well, I suppose from Scottish Power's perspective, it's a good 20 years ago that our leadership decided that the direction was renewable energy, and we've been ever since then, and even more so in recent times. Absolutely everything we do is through a climate change lens. Our whole business across the renewables, networks, and supply businesses are now focused 100% on that climate change agenda and how we have a role to play in that. And it is leadership from the top and leading by example, where I think from my perspective, I can sit here and honestly say that I'm extremely proud to work for a company that promotes the fight against climate change in absolutely everything we do. And that's something that stems from leadership externally, but also internally. And I mean, what we've found in recent years, I think, is people's demands are changing, customer demands are changing, and the world is changing around us. And that runs through the entire company. And we're very aware that if we want to recruit the best talent to join our company and share those passions that we have, then we have to lead by example and show that we are committed to taking those actions. I mean, we knew that ourselves. A couple of years ago, we recruited our own head of climate change to challenge us internally and externally. And that's the leadership acknowledging that we are under a lot of scrutiny and in what we do, and we need to be walking the walk, so to speak, as well as talking the talk in all of these areas.
Have there been moments along the way that hasn't fully worked, or where there have been moments where leaders have had to make some quite drastic changes?
Well, yes, Stuart. I mean, the drastic changes we had to make. We used to operate coal power station, and Councillor Aiken mentioned earlier the importance of a just transition, and we knew that the decisions we had to make to close Long Annet Power Station, but we also knew that there's a large number of workers affected by that, and that's not easy. So what we embraced then was the opportunity to discuss with those employees and make sure that their individual circumstances were taken into account in order to find appropriate opportunities for them elsewhere to match each and every individual situation. And that's something that it's not just Scottish Power that faces that. I mean, we're looking at the oil and gas industry is about to have to make its own transition to the net zero future that we're all working towards. And there are real people and real communities and real lives impacted by this, but it's our responsibility as an employer to make sure that that transition is as just and fair as possible for absolutely everybody involved.
Thanks, Hazel. I'll bring in Kirsty. Kirsty, you're a company that has climate change as a central focus. So, just what's your advice to business leaders asking how to put climate change at the heart of their company?
I just think it's a really exciting opportunity. So first of all, seeing it as an opportunity is the key thing, rather than as a burden or a requirement that's been imposed by somebody else. So I think in order for it to happen, you have to have it integral in your company thinking. So we have, for example, our operations manager is now our operations and carbon manager, because it has to pervade everything that you're doing as a business. So having Judy on our team has really just helped us to do more faster. Just the way she thinks, she's always asking more. And in the same ways that Hazel has mentioned about how they took on a climate change leader in their business, and you just end up doing more. And it's exciting. It's kind of addictive. And then you're just like, what else can we do? And then, what I would say is, our experience is most people want to do something. They don't know where to start. So having a community of people who are driving you forward is just really exciting in that space. So yeah, just make sure you're having carbon conversations with other companies who are already there. Most people want to help. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Has your as the kind of work that you've been doing over the last 11 years changed as climate change has become a significant issue?
Well, so the day-to-day work that we do is helping projects like wind farm sites succeed. So we work for companies like Scottish Power, hi Hazel, and we're very lucky that we work in a sector that's already doing massive amounts of work to help reduce climate change impacts. Where it has changed, I would say, so 2019, we decided that actually it's all very well working in that field. That's brilliant and exciting in its own way. But what are we doing internally? Let's get a little bit uncomfortable and look at our own relationship with carbon as a business. And it was uncomfortable because we have, as every business has, you've got your own carbon footprint and you need to be aware of how you are using carbon. So what we chose to do as a business was to go carbon negative. And I would just say, for those who are interested in this, it costs us £600 to offset our carbon for a year. It's really affordable to do. So in terms of the day-to-day job that we do, that hasn't changed, but how we do it has changed. So it's a critical part of our business that we are constantly thinking about driving our carbon footprint down.
That's excellent. We'll certainly come back to that carbon offsetting point later. Now, both Carol and Andrew, you can't be saying that necessarily climate change is absolutely the centre of your business models. There are other issues of leadership change that you have to tackle, and I'll particularly come to Carol in the first instance. It's a company that could, Carol Clark's a company that could face quite significant major change in the years ahead. But as HR director, you've got to think about a whole wide range of issues that will help the company and its leadership succeed. Can you tell us some of the main issues that you're having to tackle at the moment, and how you see leadership playing its role in tackling major change?
Yeah, well, thanks first of all for having me on this morning, Stuart, and hello to everyone. I think we've obviously heard a lot this morning around with climate action. Our people are at the centre of this. We need their creativity, and we need a diverse workforce to be on board with us and to be innovative in our thinking. So in a sort of broader sense, to answer your question, Stuart, I think some of the key challenges, or I should say more so key focuses for the business, although climate action must be at the heart of the agenda, there must also be some other key agenda points too. And for me, that is things like diversity, ensuring that we keep all of those sort of plates spinning and keep telling our story of being a diverse workforce so that we continue to retain the right talent and to attract it too. I think one of the other thing, or sort of major sort of pieces that every employer is facing right now, and a huge hot topic of conversation that we're engaging with our businesses on is that of hybrid working, and what does the new workplace look like? How do we live and work? But again, our people are at the source of that, and it's so critical that we engage them in the communication and find the very best possible solution for them and the business.
Actually, Carol, maybe you could expand a little on that. That hybrid working is very much the kind of topical issue for us, even though we're not yet confirmed as to when we're going back into the office full time. But what have you found or been at the heart of that particular challenge around hybrid working? What sorts of issues are you having to resolve?
So, just by way of background, so that everyone is aware, a majority, it will be probably quite obvious from our branch network, a majority of our workforce, over 85%, are what I would class as fully on premise. So we require them to be in our branch network serving our customers. But we have found, as we're all aware, there's a lot of statistical information available now that many more people are looking for far more flexible options in their day-to-day life. So what we've done as a business, as we've sort of divided the workforce into the employees that we need to be fully on premise, and to try and establish some very meaningful ways in which we can provide flexible working solutions, even though we require them at the branch, so that they feel like they're getting some kind of flexible working offering, and there isn't a them and us divide for those employees who are able, for example, to work from home in their role on a day-to-day basis. I think what's crucial with all of this is the key communication with your people. So as you set out your stall and set a strategy for what the workplace is going to look like in the future, engage your employees and your management at all times, listen to their ideas and contributions, and then they'll be on board and moving forward.
Super, thanks, Carol. I'm going to turn to Andrew now. Yours is a business that's well used to creative change. I mean, that's right at the heart of your model. So how do you see sustainability and there may be other issues of significance as we come out of recovery, digital revolution, as I said, diversity issues. Society, though, in the first instance, how's that affecting the way you lead?
Well, thanks, Stuart. Well, I suppose what we've tried to do at Made Brave, we're a creative agency. We've got about 50 people, just for context for everyone. And I suppose we've all been on a hamster wheel for years, many businesses, and we've been doing what we've been doing. Everyone's been turning up at offices and we've been working in offices. And I suppose if there's one good thing that comes out of a pandemic is it's a chance to reset, rethink, and reset a new vision. And I think that's the opportunity that I've tried to jump on with my team. And very early, as we all went remote, I decided I could see that the world was heading towards this kind of more flexible model, the hybrid model anyway. So I've taken the opportunity to try and lead that direction. And it has many benefits for a business, I believe. So we've gone to what we call a triple flexi model. It sounds like a burger, but it's actually a policy for how we want to work. And what we've said to our team is you can now work anywhere, so you can decide where you will want to work. And we're going to keep our offices, but we would rather they become a destination for the brand rather than a mandatory place that you have to appear. Now, I get there's no one size fits all and fit every business, but I'm trying it for our own. And I believe the environmental benefit there is I don't have 50 cars trundling down the road every day back and forth to the office. It also gives people that flexibility in terms of working lives. Some of us care for young children, some of us care for elder parents, and we all have a different balance in life. So that kind of ability to choose where you work, we're trying and hoping that will lead to a lot of positive change. We've also introduced flexi time in terms of when you start and finish. finish, sorry, and we've also included a flexi leave policy where we've given a very generous 37 days off, but we've also said to people, if you find yourself out of options and you need leave, come to us and if we can make it possible, we will. And overall, we've tried to build all of these changes because they're quite challenging, because there is no one size fits all for every business or for your own business. What we've said to our team is that we're building this policy around 3 pillars of freedom, trust, and respect. That we want to make the positive change of bringing freedom, the freedom to choose when you work, how you work, but the trust and respect that you will look after our business, our clients, and your team members.
Andrew, are you finding that your clients are having an impact on what they expect of you as a business in that wide range of whether it's how you treat your employees, how you address the planet, how you go about your business in a general sense? What are you seeing coming from clients in that fashion?
Yeah, Stuart. So most of our business is now with large global brands. We work with the likes of Diageo, with Nestle, with Medtronic. So we're working with brands that are all over the world. And we tend to now, when we're onboarded into a business, it's through procurement teams. That's who we work with. And yeah, I'm finding it's very important that almost is just as important as the work you do is what your culture is, what your policies are, and how you look after your people. And I'm a big believer in branding, that brands are built from the inside out. And if you do look after your people, if you can create an amazing culture, well, everything else kind of looks after itself. Great
stuff. Thanks, Andrew. Seb, can I bring you in? Hybrid working. We've just opened that little box for a moment. Just your view on the impacts of hybrid. Have you done any examination of what that might do to the productivity of your clients? What's your view?
Yeah, so it's at the same time a huge challenge and an opportunity. There was some good work. Some of the best work is always the most simple. From McKinsey 6 months ago, that ran the rule over the sorts of changes we've seen through the pandemic, and tried to establish indications as to which of these effects would likely endure and which would snap back to previous ways of working. And I think the overall indications so far are clearly showing that both businesses and staff and colleagues are keen to capture as much of the good sides of the upsides of the time that we have in our home environments where that's available, but also to retain some of the best bits that we used to find from being in an office, and that is inherently going to be the challenge of making hybrid working work for different teams with different disciplines, cultures, and requirements across the businesses. It's certainly had a big positive impact in some of the productivity that I see across the bank. I would love to be able to chit chat over coffee and biscuits with fellow guests and attendees at this event, when hopefully we are able to do this in person again. But it does mean that I'm actually able to talk to many more people through the course of my day across a wider footprint of our operations, and so we've seen boosts to our ability to reach and connect with customers as a result of everyone just adopting more technology. So I'm optimistic that I think we can find a balance across different areas, which is win-win for everyone involved. And if that involves shuffling slightly fewer millions of people each morning, then our networks and infrastructure will probably thank us for it.
Great, thanks, Seb. And I've got a comment in here from Sarah O'Donnell at Dell Technologies, and she's saying we're on to what we now call Connected Workplace 2.0, which is a hybrid approach to work. and customers are coming to us for advice on this. And we're constantly now discussing with our customers how to help them prepare for this hybrid approach to work. Hazel, how are you? How's that going in Scottish Power at the moment? Although admittedly you can't fully get back to the office, but are you planning for that?
Absolutely, Stuart. I mean, it's actually quite interesting because just before sort of early 2020, we'd already embarked on a project called Better Balance to sort of introduce that better balance to the workplace. And that sort of evolved into a return to workplace assessment, how we get everyone back into our huge offices in Glasgow, apart from anything, due to the impact that we're very aware that's having on the economy around about us. But now, in the net zero context, that has sort of moved on again to become okay, now there's an opportunity to say, how do we transition to becoming a net zero workplace? And well, right now we're looking at, as you said earlier, we don't have any guidance on dates for return to the workplace, but we're hoping to get some kind of idea around this phased return from the end of June that the Scottish Government have sort of indicated might be possible. But that's also given us the opportunity to look at, okay, how do we return people to the office, and where do people need to be to work? And looking at things like our travel policy, we've recently published a new travel policy, which is going to revolutionise, quite frankly, our travel, and only allowing people to use train travel within the UK, for example. That's going to be a huge change, but something we know that we have to do. And it's been coming, but we're doing it now. And we're electrifying our vehicle fleet as well, and allowing staff to park in the HQ building if they have an electric vehicle or they need access to charging. So creating these opportunities for workers in a net zero environment. So it's that leading by example for our employees, and encouraging them and supporting them to make those changes, as well as acknowledging what some of the things Seb was saying there about the benefits of working from home. Of course, people want to embrace those, but ultimately we are a office-based environment, but it's just how we use that office in future that's likely to change, become more of a collaboration space rather than just everybody coming and sitting at their desk 5 days a week, which I think we all know is just not necessary.
Of course, you'll be able to tell. You'll have that. Whether the balance actually comes true, that it's better that folks don't use transport to get to work or work from home versus the amount of energy that they're using to be in the home. Are you beginning to get any messages or signs coming out of that, Hazel?
I think it's difficult because during the pandemic, obviously, there are more people at home, yes, and there are less people in the workplace. But given the sort of the steps that we're taking, I think it's kind of hard to assess at the moment what the impact of that will be. And as we move through and come out the other side of the pandemic, I think it's when and if, I should say, people return to their previous behaviours, that's when we'll start to see the impact, rather than right now. At the moment, we have all sorts of conditions on use of public transport, for example, whether it's wearing masks or reduced capacity, or people just being reluctant potentially to get back to public transport. So that it's not really a true benchmark of what the reality is. Will people just jump in their cars instead of getting the train? That's not what we want. We want to be able to get back to a point where we can see that the public transport is a safe and effective way to get people to work. So I think right now it's hard to tell, but as we progress and hopefully make positive steps towards coming out of the situation that we're in, then we'll get a better idea.
Thanks very much. Hazel, Carol rather. Arnold Clark obviously has a role to play in one aspect of the change, climate change, and that's the rise of electric vehicles. To what extent is that having an impact on the discussions you're having at a senior leadership level about how you shape strategy for Arnold Clark?
So there's maybe a point to introduce the fact, for those of you that are not aware, we actually have opened an innovation centre. It only very recently opened. It was due to open just as we went into our first lockdown. So in terms, I would say that that's very much at the heart of our discussions from a leadership point of view, and it's all about us educating both the customer, obviously first and foremost, but also our employees. It's very much an information hub, but also an education engagement that we use to share knowledge throughout the business, and we're hoping also to be a very practical on-site training facility for both our leadership and our employees throughout the business to demonstrate the future of vehicles in the UK, or transportation. If you please feel free to go and visit, but as you enter the building today, you're met with both electric vehicles, e-bikes, and many other educational pieces. So encourage you to have a look, and we'd love to see you there at any point.
Excellent. Another good facility for the city. I've got a question in from Janet. Do the panel feel businesses need a champion or a head of sustainability in order to progress the agenda, or is it really the responsibility of everyone in the business? Kirsty, I'm going to come to you first, because you've probably got immediate experience of that. So what's your view on that?
Right. So I think having somebody, a champion in your business, if that helps you to push the agenda forward, then absolutely. So we've chosen to take on a carbon manager, and to make that happen in our business, we've got a team of 28 to 30 people. It kind of varies throughout the year. So we are quite small and we can do that. I think, though, there's something quite unique here. There's an opportunity that we found in terms of inducting new members of the team, in fact, in terms of recruiting. So we have found that with all our focus on absolutely trying to get on top of our carbon footprint, on being climate aware, it's pervaded our website even. It's just in all our literature, it's in our job descriptions and so forth. So we're finding that we're recruiting people who are informed, engaged, interested, passionate about making a difference. So we're getting a higher caliber, I would say, of people coming through our doors now, and they want to know what we're doing. So it's something that we're talking about every week now. And we've got a team ethos, I think, that just means that people want to contribute and they're being heard. And it's just become this kind of self-sustaining entity. So to answer your question, I think do what fits your business. You'll know if you're big enough and you can afford to have somebody that can just focus on this and then, try and nudge here and there, then great. But also look at how you recruit people and you get them on board. Then you get people who are already interested. And I would just say that that's been a really positive experience for us. I don't think that you need to have somebody to champion the cause. I think that you just need to have that as part of your appraisal focus. Almost you can say to people, what are you thinking? What is it exercising you? And what would you like to make a difference? It's easy for us because we work in renewables. We work with scientists. Our team keep me on my toes constantly with their contributions and thinking. And I wouldn't have that any other way. I think it's just fantastic. So making it part of your culture, having it on a boardroom agenda, making sure that there's a drumbeat and it's just not something that people think is for sandal-wearing hippies or something like this. It is absolutely essential that we all get on board with this. And it's not, a lot of people are doing, things in their personal lives, but they don't feel like they can talk about it in the workplace. And that's really sad. So if you think of how climate change, if it was an agenda item the same way cybersecurity was, then I think we'd see real change happening. It would be a risk agenda. It is a risk agenda item, and it belongs in that boardroom, the C-suite, if you like.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Which route have you gone down? Have you gone for a head of sustainability or a climate champion, or have you gone for something more across the organisation as a whole?
Well, what we've done is we've set 3 OKRs, company-wide OKRs, one of them being to be globally renowned for creativity. So that makes our company think and act globally. One of them is a monetary figure that we're working towards. And the third one is to be the best place on the planet to work for. Now, if we have to be the best place on the planet to work for, we need a planet. So that drives that we then set a layer of OKRs below that the leadership team agree. Some of those are sustainable ones. And then they filter down into individual OKRs that people can then feed into. So everyone's feeding towards that, but we've also as well have created a kind of action group. So I'm kind of a big believer, if you kind of almost say to everyone you need to do it, no one's going to do it. So we've created a small tight group that is led by a champion, but a group of people that can support and help. And then, if I am looking for advice, I can go to them and ask them questions, but they'll also drive sort of change requests to me.
Splendid, Andrew. And Seb, you do have a head of climate change in Royal Bank of Scotland. How do you avoid that becoming a nice little group set off to the side? Everyone says, well, they're dealing with that. What's going on inside Royal Bank of Scotland stops that from happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been fantastic having James and his experience and knowledge to help us. But it absolutely is a complement to everyone's efforts to make climate part of their day-to-day business. So when us and Rose launched our strategy refresh at the start of last year, climate was a key plank of the purpose of the bank that was launched at that time, and so from that point forwards, really, that was the line at which sustainability stopped being something that a group of specialists would solve for you, and repivoted, if you like, to be a core expectation of what everyone comes to work to deliver as part of doing their job to their fullest ability. And so James and his team is therefore positioned to help us tackle the thorniest issues and make sure that all those individual efforts are being most impactful through the way they're organised, rather than to take the responsibility off everyone. And that approach has worked really well, and it means that the sustainability team is in a much more sort of inspiring leadership place, rather than taking responsibility off other people.
Linda, thanks very much. To Seb, to Andrew, Carol, Hazel and Kirsty, thank you very much for your time this morning. We're going to take another break, another 10-minute break for round of refreshment, and we will be back after that at 11:40 to look at innovation and disruptive technologies in the city. So thank you very much. Look to see you again at 11:40. Thank you.